right, good morning. Gonna give everyone some time to jump on, see what everyone's up to. I know that every morning I've been tuning in, I've been making my coffee and listening. Not for sure where you're tuning in from. Why don't you let us know? Maybe it's the afternoon where you're at or the evening. Who knows? We've got people tuning in from everywhere. California, Malaysia. So cool to see everyone this morning. Looks like we're getting synced up across Facebook and social media. Facebook is social media, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. We're excited to be together today for our 7th day of 7 at 7. I'm so excited to be sharing about 7 Mile Miracle. We have been walking on this journey together through the last 7 statements of Jesus's life. And so I'm excited to share with you guys today, but before we jump in, I thought I would just introduce myself. My name is Brennan, and I am our guest experience pastor at our Lake Norman location. And I'm just excited just to share a little bit of my journey here at Elevation. Really, it started back whenever I was a senior in high school. I had a friend who sent me one of Pastor Stephen's sermons, and it encouraged me so much. It spoke directly to where I was at, that I kept listening throughout the years. And at one time, we had a group of friends in Kentucky in my hometown, where we would gather together in the living room and we would watch the sermons that came from this place. And a couple years later, I got to a place in my life where I didn't know what was next. And so I decided to apply for our internship program here. So a little plug there. Our internship program is amazing. And so I told my parents, I said, I'm going to Charlotte for 12 weeks and then I will be back. And I am now coming up on 5 years of being here with the church. And it has just been an incredible honor to serve on our staff in different roles, and I love being up at our Lake Norman location. But I'm excited to dive in today. We have been on mile 1 of this journey talking about forgiveness, and so today is our last day talking about forgiveness. Tomorrow we get to start talking about salvation. But I thought that I would just share from the last paragraph of the first chapter that in Pastor Stephen's book, 7 Mile Miracle. It says this: becoming pure like Jesus and entering into the presence of God requires that we lose both our offenses against God and our grudges toward others who have offended us. We can't start moving on our journey until we've been liberated by forgiveness. I love that phrase, liberated by forgiveness. This thought that forgiveness liberates us. It brings us freedom. And if we're honest, that's what we all want in our lives. We want to live a life of freedom, freedom of guilt, freedom of shame, freedom of tension in relationships. But so often our reality is different. Our reality doesn't feel that way. And we don't experience the freedom that God has for us because so often we're holding on to grudges. We're holding on to past offenses. And whenever we do that, it has a way of kind of paralyzing us, making us stop in our tracks. But it's not always these big things that we hold grudges for. Sometimes it's the little things that have a way of holding on to us. And so whenever I think about holding grudges, I think about roommates. And I'm sure whenever I said that some of you kind of cringed, because we've all had some interesting experiences with roommates. Or maybe some of you are just trying to keep your eyes on the phone because you're actually watching this with your roommate. But it doesn't matter how great your roommate is, there are always areas of tension whenever it comes to roommates. And so I can't believe I'm going to tell you this story, but one of my roommates kept drinking my coffee. Over and over again, they kept drinking my coffee, and I love coffee. I like a specific brand. I love Counterculture. It's a brand here in North Carolina, and I love Big Trouble. It's one of my favorites. And she also loved it. And we kind of had this general understanding, this general rule that you can use something of mine, just make it fair. Well, and she would replace the coffee, but not with what I wanted her to replace it. And of course I never asked her, hey, could you pick up this type of coffee? I would just let it go, move on, until one morning I wake up and there is no coffee in the house. And this is not a good scenario. I was frustrated. I was not very happy, and so I did what any mature Christian would do. I grabbed my cell phone, I sent her a text because she was already at work, and I told her what I thought, probably not very nice things, and then I said, and just so you know, I'll be going through the refrigerator, the freezer, the pantry, and I'm putting a B on everything that is mine for Brennan, and that will show you. And I look back on that story and I just think about how immaturely I handled that. But if I look back, in reality, what was happening is that I was in a season where I was holding on to offenses. I was bitter. I was frustrated. It felt like every conversation I had, every interaction, I was on the defense. And the reason for that was because I hadn't dealt with offenses that had come up along the way. And not necessarily just offenses with my roommate, but offenses with other people in my life. Because whenever we hold on to grudges, it really holds us and it affects every part of my life, every part of our lives. And it's difficult to walk in forgiveness when you're holding on to grudges. And so what I want to share about with you guys this morning is about these everyday offenses, these everyday things that build up in our lives, because there are big things where we hold grudges for, but often it's these little small things that have a way of stacking up. And so whenever I think about everyday offenses, I think about maybe you got a text message from your boss and he asked you for a report and you read it as, I can't believe you don't have this report in. Are you kidding me? You're worthless. Whenever really he was just like, hey, do you have this report for me today? Or maybe it was a conversation that you had with your dad and you left feeling like he did not think that you were worth anything. Or maybe you're a mom and you were scrolling through social media and you realize that your son was the only one that wasn't invited to his classmates' party. It's these everyday offenses that have a way of building up. And so then we're left to, what do we do with it? We get offended, we hold on to it, we think about it, we talk about it. But how do we let go of these grudges so that we can be liberated by forgiveness? And so I just want to share a couple of things that I've been holding on to as I've been walking through this. And the first one is this: I can pre-decide to forgive. Pastor Stephen has talked about the power of pre-decision several times in our church. And I believe that this is a powerful area where we can pre-decide that we're going to forgive. Before we're in the situation, before the person comes to us and asks for forgiveness, we can decide we're going to be a person who forgives. We are going to live a lifestyle of forgiveness, because at the end of the day, I'm only responsible for my response. I can't control their response. I can only control my own. And so what if I respond with forgiveness? What if I respond with grace? God's forgiven us limitless, and so we can do the same for other people. I've heard Pastor Stephen say before that forgiveness, I'm going to read this quote, forgiveness is setting a prisoner free and realizing that it was me. Sometimes we're holding on, trying to get people back for what they did, and really we're realizing that holding grudges only holds us. And so the first thing we can do is we can pre-decide that we are going to forgive. The second thing is we can decide to not talk about it and move on. Sometimes we wonder why we're living in the pain of what happened 2 months ago or 2 years ago. Well, maybe it's because we keep making ourselves aware of it. We keep talking about it with people, we keep complaining about it, and we're not letting it go. And I'm just wondering, what is God asking you to hit delete on that you've been hitting repeat on? Maybe if we stop making ourselves so aware, we would be able to move on. I have a general rule of thumb in my own life that if I talk to more than 2 people about something going on in my life, I'm probably not looking for advice. I'm probably just looking for attention. And so I even think about, going back to the coffee story, what if I had just went to my roommate and just talked to her about it instead of going to other people and complaining? I kept making myself aware of it, and holding grudges, once again, only holds you. And in Proverbs 19:11, it says, a man's wisdom gives him patience. It is his glory to overlook an offense. And so I just want to encourage you, can you be hard to offend and quick to forgive? I'm praying that as you begin to let go of the grudges that have built up in your life, that you'll begin to experience the freedom that God has for you. But hey, it is Sunday morning and here in the United States, and I would be crazy if I didn't tell you to make sure that you are at church this weekend. Pastor Stephen is preaching on forgiveness, and I had the privilege of listening to it last night, and it is an incredibly practical sermon, and it's so helpful in our walk. So make sure that you listen to the sermon today. If you're a part of our e-family and you join us online or you attend one of our locations, make sure you're there. Make sure that you pick up a copy of 7 Mile Miracle. This book has been so helpful that you join an e-group and just surround yourself with the right people. But thank you for letting me be a part of 7 at 7. I'm excited to see you guys tomorrow.